Cool session out on the perimeter of the Great Salt Lake. It's a cool little spring area that I like to go to. A bunch of mirrors, nothing real big in here. A lot of 10-pound-ish fish. Sometimes they'll push up close to 15. Really shallow water, really skinny water, real clear water. And as you can kind of see, the wind's blowing right to left here. That was pretty much my setup for the entire day as I worked down one side of this creek. And honestly, like that, to get these guys to hit, it for the most part, it had to come down like that. And I was slapping the water harder than I normally would, mostly because with the wind blowing across, you do what you can. Ideally, you wouldn't slap the water this hard, but there's really just no way to get it in there in position. And then you got the bow in the line from when it lands, when you try to do the drag. It's difficult conditions. So you're going to see not a lot of long shots, but a lot of these I'm intercepting cruisers. And something you really got to keep in mind on cruisers is, sometimes they'll pick it up if they're going fairly slow. They'll stop and pick something up. But you'll see a lot of these, they're moving at a pretty good clip. And some people will say, well, these aren't really feeding these fish. And you're right, these are not what I would call good target active feeders, a lot of these. But if you can intercept them on the drag and drop, so it comes down, it's got to be really close as they come by. It's got to be dropping, fairly close to the area that they're at in the water column, and they can't have to move very far left or right. They will eat much more than people think. Even the really fast cruisers, you can get to eat. Now, I will tell you that you're better off looking for tailors if you can. The problem I had here was all of the tailors, for the most part, were in these weeds where you're really, and especially with this wind, it was almost impossible to pull a fly in position in front of them. Between the bow and the line and it going from, the wind coming across, to try to cast it out and pull it in and get it in these little tiny windows, because in the weeds, it's got to be within a couple inches. I don't think I successfully did it one time. So it was a lot of, yeah, this was a double. I got one in, I landed it in the net. I just dropped the net. It was still in the water because there was another one was coming. And then I cast out and caught it. So I ended up with kind of my own double in a pretty short period of time there. Again, it's all kind of the same thing over and over again. But the thing to keep in mind is cruisers can be caught. They're not as easy of a target as tailors, but especially if you have a situation like this where, again, the tailors were in a spot between the wind and where they were located. They weren't out in these flat areas, right? So you see kind of these troughs, if you would, between the weed areas and the weed beds. Those are kind of the areas that the fish were moving, right? They were moving from weed bed to weed bed, or they were, sometimes carp just cruise, and I don't know why they do it. These next two are probably the most like tailing, really tailer, slow moving. You see that one coming in from the top there, the fly on the window. It was like straight above it on the left side of the screen. And then it drops down, he comes up on it and he eats it. But again, that's a real slow moving fish. It's not a good angle. Again, right, this is a tailor. Now, he was just in those weeds right there. He comes out into the trough right here. You see I do the drop. Now watch that fly disappear. You see how he never actually gets to the fly? And the fly just disappears like this. I had a buddy out with me fishing this weekend, and I was explaining that to him, and he got to experience it where he was like, I swear the carp never got to the fly. Like, yeah, they don't always get to the fly. They have such powerful suction. Sometimes it's 3 or 4 inches out in front of them, they'll suck that fly in. Now, if it's a heavy fly, they may not get it. But in this case, and what we were doing this weekend, this is a completely unweighted leech. And so it's a very light fly, so they can suck that fly in from a long ways away. And that is more natural for what they eat most of the time. Most of these prey items that these carp eat, they don't have a lot of weight and they're not attached to anything. And so it is more natural for them to be able to suck that in. Anyway, that was kind of a cool representation of that. So sometimes if you don't think they're on your fly, but they're pretty close and they make an eat movement, there's a decent chance it's your fly. Again, if you have a light fly, they can get it all the way in their mouth. But anyway, hope some of these tips I talked about today will help. Spring is roaring, fishing's fantastic. Get out there and get some. And yeah, we'll see you guys soon. Thanks.